You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Wednesday, 19th of March 2014. Islamic teacher who sexually abused girl 11 as he taught her the Koran, spared jail because his wife doesn't speak English. Al-Qaeda urges followers to bomb the Savoy. A £4 million Ugandan benefits cheat who claimed for 100 fake children demands asylum. David Cameron, it's right to employ immigrants who work hard and get on. Bulgarian security agency warns of increased terrorist risk. Hundreds of migrants storm Africa's Spanish enclave. Venetians no longer want to be part of Italy. Saudi preacher Fayan Al-Ghamdi released after raping and killing his daughter because he doubted her virginity. Somalian Islamists publicly execute Christian women. ISL jihadists conduct mass executions in Syria and Obama orders Syrian diplomats out of USA. Thought for the day, black and white minstrels. And finally, 2 for 1 day. UK news. Islamic teacher who sexually abused girl 11 as he taught her the Koran spared jail because his wife doesn't speak English. An Islamic teacher who sexually abused a young girl as he taught her the Koran has been spared prison after a court was told he is on benefits and his wife speaks very little English. Suleman Maknojioa, 40, repeatedly rubbed the 11-year-old's leg and even reached underneath the long folds of her prayer headscarf to squeeze her chest, whilst giving her and her 2 brothers private tuition in Arabic. Maknojioa was said to have favoured the girl and believed that the touching was appropriate and given to reassure her. But the confused girl, who cannot be named for legal reasons, found herself becoming frightened whenever lessons were due for fear of what the tutor would do to her. He was reported to police after the child's mother overheard her 2 sons, aged 13 and 7, talking about the incidents in the kitchen. On the day he was arrested, father of 6, Maknojioa, a highly respected Hafiz, was due to teach 30 children at a mosque near his home in Blackburn, Lancashire. He was later convicted of 5 counts of sexual activity with a child, but on Monday he was handed a 40-week custodial sentence, suspended for 2 years, after the court heard he was now on benefits with a family reliant on him. Maknojioa will be under supervision for 2 years and made subject of sexual offences prevention order for 10 years. He will also be on an adult barring list for 7 years. World at 8. What is wrong with this? Lack of deportation is what is wrong. Then we wouldn't have to keep his sodding family while he's in prison. What is wrong with these judges? Are they being paid by the Muslim communities or blackmailed? Al-Qaeda urges followers to bomb the Savoy. Latest issue of Inspire magazine includes instructions for building a car bomb, like that used in the bungled Times Square attack, and lists targets in the UK, US and France. Al-Qaeda has published a list of car bomb targets for its followers in Britain, including FA Cup matches and the Savoy Hotel. The 12th issue of Inspire, published by Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, urges supporters to maximise casualties by targeting people rather than buildings in heavily populated areas. It offers instructions on how to build a car bomb using materials that will not arouse suspicion and frequently cites the example of Faisal Shahzad, the failed Times Square bomber. But its most chilling passages are reserved for a country-by-country list of targets. In the UK it suggests events with live TV coverage, including Premier League and FA Cup football matches, as well as the Cheltenham Festival. World at 8. I have a hit list for Al-Qaeda. The Channel, all of Dubai, most of Saudi, all of Pakistan and Afghanistan, and the Holy Rock of Mecca, and the People's Republic of China. How's that? Any additions I've left out? £4 million Ugandan benefits cheat who claimed for 100 fake children demands asylum. A Ugandan benefit fraudster who stole £4 million from the British taxpayer is claiming asylum because of the disgrace she faces if she was sent home. Ruth Nabaguzi is insisting that relatives are angry at the shame she's brought on them through her criminal activities here. Nabaguzi was accused of an outrageous abuse of the hospitality shown to her by Britain when she, along with a gang of other fraudsters, was convicted of stealing more than £4.1 million from taxpayers. The 20-year scam saw her gang create fake identities for up to 100 children to milk the benefits system. She was yesterday ordered by a judge to pay back 1.5 million of the money she stole or face having her 6-year jail sentence doubled. Nabaguzzi also claimed to have HIV and AIDS, to receive costly drugs which she then sent back to Uganda to be sold to genuine victims at a huge profit. It was estimated that supplying the medicines to her, as well as 4 others, made-up patients, cost the taxpayer more than £2 million. Now, in a further twist to her case, the Daily Mail has learned that Nabaguzzi plans to make an asylum application in a bid to halt deportation. When she was jailed in November 2012, she was told she would be kicked out of the country. World at 8. We've got one of them down here. She keeps getting children over from Kenya and now boasts at least 4 kids and more keep coming. There are no checks on these people locally whatsoever. David Cameron, it's right to employ immigrants who work hard and get on. David Cameron robustly defends employment of Nepalese nanny and laughs off suggestions he helped her gain British citizenship with a joke at the expense of his cabinet. It's right for British people to employ immigrants as long as they want to work hard and get on, David Cameron has said. The Prime Minister launched a passionate defence of his decision to hire a Nepalese nanny a week after James Brokenshire, the immigration minister, blamed the middle class's demand for cheap foreign labour for fuelling migration. European news. Bulgarian security agency warns of increased terrorist risk. There's an increased risk of extremist and terrorist groups in Bulgaria, concluded a report of the State Agency for National Security, DANS, D-A-N-S. The agency has identified the considerable risks for national security but did not specify them. In 2013 it has investigated nearly 100,000 dubious people and has deported from Bulgaria 128 foreigners deemed dangerous for Bulgaria. World date. So what are they doing? Sending them here. Hundreds of migrants storm Africa's Spanish enclave. About 500 people forced their way into Spain's North African enclave of Melilla on Tuesday, Spanish officials said, the largest number to storm the border in almost a decade as increasing naval patrols discourage entry by sea. Making the most of dense fog to sneak up to the crossing and climb the high wire fence, a total of 1,100 people, according to Spanish figures, and about 600 according to Morocco, made a rush across the border throughout the night and morning. Nearly 300 were arrested and at least 28 were injured, the Moroccan Interior Ministry said. Thousands of migrants camped for months around Beni Sugar, from where the attempts were made on Tuesday. Many end up in continental Spain and either they stay there or travel throughout Europe. World Day probably looked like World War Z. They don't travel through Europe, they run through Europe to the UK. Venetians no longer want to be part of Italy. Italians in Venice and its surrounding region are voting this week on whether to break away from the rest of the country and form their own country, organisers said on Monday. We no longer want to be part of a country that has gone to the wall. Nothing works anymore, Nicola Garden from the party said. Italy is weighed down by an enormous level of public debt, thousands of businesses have closed, and we've lost count of the number of people who have committed suicide in Venetia, he said. The region pays around €71 billion in taxes to Rome, 21 billion more than it receives in investment and services. The latest polls show that, of the 3.8 million people eligible to vote in the region, around 60% is in favour of independence. World at 8. Tribalism is alive and well, Scotland, Kiev and now Venice. Nobody wants to be part of anything else. They're like the Tower of Babel and will suffer the same fate. It is the culture of me that rules now. World news. Saudi preacher Fayan Al-Ghamdi released after raping and killing daughter because he doubted her virginity. A Saudi preacher accused of raping, torturing and killing his 5-year-old daughter has reportedly been released from custody after agreeing to pay blood money. Fayan Al-Ghamdi was sentenced to 8 years in prison and 100 lashes in 2013. The court also ordered Al-Ghamdi to pay his ex-wife, the girl's mother, 1 million rials, which is $270,000 in blood money. According to some reports, Al-Ghamdi has suspected his daughter had lost her virginity and had tortured her accordingly. Al-Ghamdi's daughter Lama suffered multiple injuries including a crushed skull, broken back, broken ribs, a broken left arm and extensive bruising and burns. The preacher, who is considered a celebrity in Saudi Arabia and often appears on Saudi television, admitted he used a cane and cables to inflict the injuries after doubting his 5-year-old daughter's virginity and taking her to a doctor, according to the campaign group Women to Drive. Al-Ghamdi, however, has now been released as blood money, and the time the defendant has served in prison since Lama's death suffices as punishment, a judge ruled, according to Al-Bawaba News. World Date, this man is mad and should have had his tackle removed before being pushed into the desert to die. What child of 5 loses its virginity? Poor little Lama did to her own father and her life. It may have happened in Saudi, but we now have these people in Europe, and they are multiplying. Somalian Islamists publicly execute Christian women. 2 Christian women were publicly beheaded by Islamic terrorists in southeastern Somalia as part of a campaign to wipe out any Christian presence in the East African country. The Morning Star reported Friday that the 2 women, identified as mother of 2 Sadia Ali Omar, 41, and her 35-year-old cousin Osman Mohammed Mogi, were executed by the Al-Qaeda-aligned Al-Shabaab militia in the port town of Barawa in the Lancashire region after their Christian identities were discovered. The women were reportedly outed as Christians after repeatedly failing to turn up for Muslim prayers, say locals. The 2 people who were killed on many occasions did not take Friday prayers seriously, especially Omar, who claimed that she was praying in her house, explained one. World Date, these people are dangerously pathetic. ISIL jihadists conduct mass executions in Syria and Obama orders Syrian diplomats out of USA. The jihadist Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant carried out mass executions in Syria in January, the United Nations said Tuesday, adding that it was investigating allegations of mass graves. The group conducting mass executions of detainees, thereby perpetrating war crimes, the UN Commission of Inquiry on Syria said in an update on the human rights situation in the country. ISIL is a group of radical jihadists who have fought Syria's regime, but who since the beginning of the year have also been battling a coalition of moderate and Islamist rebels angered by their abuses of rival fighters and civilians. The group is accused of kidnapping scores of people, among them rival rebels, activists, foreign journalists and humanitarian workers. Following this report, the Obama administration marked the 3rd anniversary of the start of Syria's civil war Tuesday by ordering Damascus to close its embassy in Washington and expelling its diplomats, though it did not break diplomatic relations with President Bashar al-Assad's government. The order was issued in consideration of the atrocities the Assad regime has committed against the Syrian people, and because Syria had stopped providing consular services, Daniel Rubinstein, the new US Special Envoy for Syria, said in a statement. World Date, oh surely not, the Muslims could never perpetrate crimes against humanity, could they? Thought for the day. Black and white minstrels. Now I bet you all thought I'd be having a slam at the blacks today, but I won't, honestly. But I do have a short tale to tell that will let you see what I see in the drastic change to our society that uncurtailed immigration has done. I remember when local libraries were havens of peace and quiet, apart from having the latest books regardless of their could-be, might-be, un-PC messages. The librarians were creatures to be feared, and a trip to a library was a treat for many children, accompanied by adults. Nowadays libraries, like public houses, have been opened for family fun, which means in most cases a reduction in actual books, more computers and a vast play area for under 10s. I, as usual, having done my maternity and indeed grand maternity thing, avoid our local library like the plague during those times. However, yesterday I was not so clever and timed it to just when the local kids had got out of school. I had just chosen my books and some for my better half, all of which of course he rejected when he arrived, and was sitting down waiting for him and God when the door opened, automatically like the heralding of angels, and in came one very black woman with a pushchair and a little girl about 8. Straight into the children's section, which I was sitting near. Then a few minutes after, yet another black female with 5 children, all of varying ages from 2 to 10ish. Of course they found each other, and the first little girl shouted a greeting to one of the group about not knowing them at school, which bounced around the walls like an echo, and then the hilariously awful happening of seeing these 2 very young girls, remember straight out of school, banging knuckles and singing and dancing What I Really Want by the Spice Girls at full volume. Now remember, we are in public and in a library, not a freak show or Britain Has No Talent, and they weren't bad, just in the wrong place in my view. Their respective mothers, who could barely speak English of course, ignored them, and by that time I thought the best place to go was home, and quickly. It wasn't that they were black Africans, it wasn't that they were obviously in a breeding competition, and it wasn't even the fact they were in Borden. It was the type of greeting and music that is frankly too old for kids of their ages, and surely something of what they'd learned that day counted. Although I was looking avidly at Hogarth and reading my stepfather's adult books at 8, I was the curse of any school I went to, and certainly no goody two-shoes. But the whole black culture, or rather lack of it thing, got me, and I thought that if white kids are being counted out in even small local schools, what chance do they stand in the inner cities? And of course the answer is virtually nil. The Chinese and Asians will be educated because they're usually forced to by their parents. The blacks will always be the rappers and the gangsters, which the white kids will have to accept or be out of it, and as most of them will be lucky to have one parent at home who doesn't really give a damn, they will run to join and be a wigger. Typecasting, but typecasting is called that because it does what it says on the tin. It typecasts. I'm saddened that even a local library is subjected not only to diversity and multiculturalism, but a total changeover in use of building permits to that of a crèche. Children should be made aware of books at an early age, but in reality that day has passed as long as they have their mobiles and tablets, etc. Most of these sections are used for reading to babies, which is hilarious, as most cannot even see straight at a few months, and see what a good mum I am competition, and believe me, they are a diverse lot in Hampshire. Now although my childbearing days are thankfully far behind me, having myself sterilised at 36, I did rear children, and although a strict mother, we didn't have all the bump given out now about babies being forced to mix with others to socialise, which sounds like something out of the communist era, as does the child-minding business, which sounded like a money maker from heaven for certain people. The idea of having many of these ideas take place in fairly public places as well is hilarious, and the sight of a mother clearly enjoying herself much more than her bewildered and shattered by the noise all around it baby is a sight all the do-gooders and child experts should see. You know, despite all the rhetoric about socialising and mixing and playing and developing babies, the happiest babies I used to see were in large prams, sitting up and being taken for walks, not bunged up in a car, taken to a supermarket, put into a cramped up pushchair and walked for miles along shelves, ending up in a coffee house for hours. Call me odd, I don't view that as progress. Now the child-minding business, what a doozy. I caught something on the news last night which culminated in the fact that if two people earn £300,000 a year between them, they'll get a few pounds more in childcare allowances. Am I the only one who would have liked a dual income of £300,000 a year, and if I had, would not have worked, and needed to pay for childminding as half of 300,000k is 150k, and that would have done very nicely, thank you, when my children were smaller and I couldn't work. Why? Because I had to look after them and a husband and a home, and we couldn't afford for me to work even if I'd wanted to. Stay-at-home mums were the norm in the 60s and 70s, and childminding was not the professional and greedy business it is now. My advice, mums, stop working and paying other people to look after your child. If you have a man working in the home, husband or partner, then looking after your baby is more important than a holiday in Bali, isn't it? Looking at the news pictures, all the mums in the crèche were white, which says a lot, doesn't it? It is the white mums being forced out to work, either for greed or paying the extras on a larger home or whatever. It is personal to them, so I cannot comment. But suffice to say, most, if not all, Muslim mothers and a goodly proportion of immigrant mothers are home looking after and breeding more little Muslims and immigrants in this country. And you are working so hard to keep your head above water to get a small reduction on childcare, which you shouldn't need. Marxist mantra, women having to work like men, when stay-at-home mums work the hardest and for the least benefit to them and the state, but not to their children. Then we come to the white part of the black and white minstrels, the mother forced to steal her own baby from foster parents, otherwise it would be adopted. And she is being hunted by the plods, no less. It is strange in this country the social services people leave poor little children in homes obviously badly run and in need of care. They let Muslim mothers kill and torture and starve their children because of cultural differences. Polish immigrants can kill their kids, African converts can starve them, and Africans can use them in muti killings, But do you see social services advancing on them or taking away their children? No, you do not. But give them a lovely white baby girl and oh yes, they cannot wait to form a second-rate case and take the child away. Why, you may ask? It's simple. Little white babies are much easier to have adopted and raise the idea that social services are good people. They are not. They have thousands of half-caste and black babies for whom adopting is not always desirable and they are often not wanted. So these children remain on their books and are costing you and I money. If the people involved can get a white child, they will, and it will be adopted almost at once, in fact, to order. There are hundreds if not thousands of white couples wanting white babies, which is why they go to Europe in many cases for a white child. Now Ms Ball is a good mother, she loves her daughter and the fact the child's father is a violent man does not impact in reality. She's taken the child and is on the run, which is disgusting in a civilised country. Little Lola was going to be adopted, of course, and if this takes place, Stacey Ball will never be allowed to see her own child again. And she has done nothing wrong. She has not been cruel or neglected her baby, and the baby's own father, although a bad-tempered bastard, has never touched the child. Now when you look at the cases that the SS have ignored, that of stepfathers raping and killing babies not their own, it all looks just a little bit suspect, doesn't it? There is no law in the land that says anyone can take a child or baby from its mother with no evidence of cruelty, let alone having that child adopted by strangers, whatever the financial benefits might be to the SS or parties involved. The irony of it is now that according to John Hemming, Lib Dem MP for Birmingham Yardley, it is a criminal offence to take a baby like this. Whoa, ha 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 matey. It isn't a baby like this, it is her baby which was taken from her without proper evidence and obviously with adoption in mind. If this baby had been black, half black, cruelly treated and consistently in hospital, like many others have been, it would not have been taken, as indeed those other poor unfortunates have not come under any sort of scrutiny until too late. There are some cases where it does not pay to have a lovely white female baby and social services on the same planet, let alone the same country. Shame on you. And if I had the money, I would pay for Stacey and Lola to start a new life in the States, well away from Marxist and diversity agenda of this country and its establishments. Pick the bones out of that one, SS, Plods and Hemming. And finally, 2 for 1 day. A big earthquake with a strength of 8.1 on the Richter scale hits the Middle East. 2 million Muslims die and over 1 million are injured. Iran, Iraq and Syria are totally ruined and the governments don't know where to start with providing help to rebuild. The rest of the world is in shock. The USA is sending troops to help keep the peace. Saudi Arabia is sending oil. Latin American countries are sending clothing. New Zealand and Australia are sending sheep, cattle and food crops. The Asian countries are sending labour to assist in rebuilding infrastructure. Canada is sending medical teams and supplies. Great Britain, not to be outdone, is immediately sending 2 million replacement Muslims with another 1 million to follow later. Oh, I wish. And one which you can alter for the UK as you wish. Over 5,000 years ago, Moses said to the children of Israel, "Pick up your shovels, mount your asses and camels, and I will lead you to the promised land." Nearly 75 years ago, when welfare was introduced, Roosevelt said, "Lay down your shovels, sit on your asses and light up a camel. This is the promised land." Today, Congress has stolen your shovel, taxed your asses, raised the price of camels and mortgaged the promised land. I was so depressed last night thinking about the healthcare plans, the economy, the wars, lost jobs, savings, social security, retirement funds, etc. I called a suicide hotline. I had to press 1 for English. I was connected to a call centre in Pakistan. I told them I was suicidal. They got very excited and asked if I could drive a truck. Folks, we're screwed. You've been listening to The World at 8. I am Lynn Mozart and I wish you all a very good night.